Hello, fiends. How are you today? Well, I hope you're having a spectacular day. I really do. Today is Saturday, and you know what that means? It means that it's Slaughter Psychopathy Soap Making Saturday. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. The new neighbors are getting somewhat rambunctious today. You know, a little bit more than usual. I hope that passes quickly.
Don't make me do it, Jared. Don't make me do it. Oh, man. Look what you made me do, Jared.
Yep, sounds like that's done. So anyway, if you're new here, hi, my name is Hailey Carrion, and every other third Saturday of even-numbered months, I like to sneak into the old GNN studios and make a little holotape where I talk about a true crime story that's been heavy on my cranium, and I make my own soap at the same time. If you're interested in true crime and like handmade soap, or really just like amusing stories from around the Commonwealth, I highly suggest you hit that like button down below and subscribe to Lady Imperatrix's channel. Imperatrix's. Ugh, don't judge. Words are hard. Anyway, Lady Imperatrix is kind enough to share my holotapes on her channel for me because it's really hard to maintain a YouTube channel in the wasteland, you know? What with so much going on all the time. So thanks, Lady Imperatrix, for sponsoring this video. And now, let's get into today's story. Okay, wow. Yeah, so today's story is one that you've probably been hearing something about lately thanks to the recent discovery of the secret hideout of a prolific serial killer from before the war. And you know me, I hear secret hideout and I'm already intrigued, but then it's the secret hideout of a serial killer from the olden days? Oh, yes, I love me a bit of dark history. But when I get to see it up close and personal, yes please. Oh yeah, Bone says dark history rocks. We get it, Bone. Just let me tell the story. You look nice though. You take a bath? Sweet. Anywho, I went out to this place. Oh yes, I did indeed. I went there and I had myself a nice little looky look around, you know, but afterwards I had questions. Girl, I had all the questions. Like, who was this vintage villain? Did their reign of terror end when the bombs fell? Or did they manage to continue on somehow, perhaps even up to this very day? And you know, like every good true crime fan, I dug in and started doing my research, but I found that a lot of the records from those days were lost. You know, nuclear obliteration will do that. But from what records remain, and the incredible sleuthing done by my good friend, the one and only Nick Valentine. Shout out to you, Nicky. You the bomb. Not the bomb, but the bomb. You know what I mean. But anyway, yeah, we were able to piece together all kinds of information and finally solve the mystery of what has come to be known these days as the legend of the Fens Phantom. Let's kick this story off where all good stories start, at the beginning. The Fens Phantom was actually born Carl Riskington in the year 2042 at Milton General Hospital in Milton, Massachusetts. Carl. Just doesn't sound like the name of a serial killer, right? I mean, it's more like someone that would sell you a used car or play golf with your dad than be a serial killer. No offense to anyone named Carl, though. Nay. It's just that Carl sounds like someone too nice to be a serial killer. That's all. Yeah, well, except for these guys. But all the other Carls in the world are super fabulous people, I'm sure. Anyway, Carl's father, Harold Riskington, worked on the assembly line at the Wilson Automatoys factory, and his mother, Josephine was a stay-at-home mom who sometimes worked as a substitute social studies teacher at the Suffolk County Charter School. Who wrote this? You know how I am with words. Social studies. Substitute social studies teacher at the Suffolk County Charter School. It was nice for them, just living all normal and stuff. Carl also had an older brother, Martin, who was, in a way, kind of like the complete opposite of Carl. But more about him later. There is some juicy goss there. Trust me. Shortly after baby Carl was born, the Riskingtons bought some land outside of Quincy, Massachusetts, and built themselves a nice little homestead in an idyllic wooded area, close to work for both parents, and a safe, beautiful, nature-filled playground for the boys. It seemed like the perfect place for anyone to raise a family, until the Great War came along and ruined everything. But like for everybody, not just the Riskingtons. Am I right? Yeah, Mr. Pembroke says I'm right. Thanks, Mr. P. You know stuff. Right on. Anyway, later on, when little Carl was about 6 years old, he was asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he excitedly said that he wanted to be an artist. He was just crazy about drawing and sculpting, spending days upon days on his creations. However, his mom and dad weren't really into it, and after receiving an unsatisfactory grade from his art teacher in school, his parents told him that it was fine to keep his art as a hobby, but that he would never make a living at it. Only talented people get to be artists, they said, and encouraged Carl to think about doing something else when he grew up, something more stable, maybe like what Daddy did. So they took little Carl to visit the Automatoys factory where his father worked, and the kid kind of seemed fascinated by it all, really. But it was after this visit when they began to realize that something was not quite right with the boy. In the car on the way home, he asked his parents if people came apart in pieces like the giddy-up buttercups he had seen on the factory's assembly line. They explained that no, people couldn't be taken apart like the toys he had seen, that they were living things, and living things couldn't come apart like toys. At first, his parents just put his questions down to childlike curiosity and basically forgot about the whole thing. That is, until one day, his mother was putting away some boxes into the family shed and discovered young Carl sitting in the dark, covered in blood, and staring at several roughly severed pieces of squirrel that were nailed to a board. Not wanting to frighten the boy with her reaction, Josephine suppressed her shock and revulsion and gently asked, "Honey, what is that?" With his eyes glimmering with pride, the little boy turned his blood-spattered face to his mother and said with a smile, "It's art, Mommy. I made art." Well, a few months later, after it was discovered that he and his art projects were responsible for the demise of several cats in the neighborhood, his parents decided that they needed to do something drastic to help their obviously troubled son. And so he was sent to Parsons Asylum for an evaluation and, as it turned out, an extended stay. An extended stay of 13 years, actually. While there, he made friends with an inmate that went by the name Chalky Bob. Chalky Bob was never released, and he died in his cell the day of, basically the apocalypse. Chalky Bob was a few years older than Carl, and he had the habit of drawing on the walls of his cell with chalk, hence the name, and this was a skill he was happy to teach his younger friend. Years later, Carl was released when he was 19 years old, after somehow passing all his psych exams with flying colors. Good psychopaths seem to have a tendency to do that, Gotta watch them. His parents, unfortunately, never got to see that day, as they had been brutally murdered several months before he was set free. it was Carl's older brother Martin who had discovered the bodies. The scene had been so gruesome and bizarre that Martin vowed never to return to the homestead and immediately put the family home up for sale. Knowing that it would be a difficult sale, Martin began tearing the buildings down and offered the land at a very low price. And it wasn't long before an anonymous buyer snatched it up. That anonymous buyer, boys and girls, was none other than Carl himself. Yep, he had taken his share of the inheritance and while still in Parsons, secretly bought the land for himself, determined to quietly rebuild the family home to his own particular tastes. Upon his release, Carl first found employment as a Ferris wheel operator at the world-famous Nuka World amusement park.
The cheeriest place in all the world.
He was fired after only a few months, though, because according to Nuka World employment records, he had, quote, engaged park patrons in deeply disturbing conversations, and fellow employees complained of strange and unnerving behavior that made them feel extremely uncomfortable, end quote. 3 employees of Nuka World had gone missing while Carl was working there, but no one ever suspected him of anything at the time. But, years later, however, certain evidence would surface that makes us think that yeah, probably good old Carl had a hand in those people disappearing, and that it was here that he began developing into the serial killer that would be known as the Fens Phantom. After he was let go from Nuka World, he next found work as a janitor at Green Tech Genetics. Working as a janitor gave Carl full access to the building and all of its secrets, and usually when no one else was around. And as it turns out, Green Tech was a hotbed of all kinds of other information that was not known to the public. Eavesdropping in on board meetings and scientific water cooler chat, Carl learned that the war out there in the world was not really going as well as the news media were reporting, and that some of the great minds at Green Tech were working on an immortality project that would use radiation to prolong life. So all the 1%ers could live on after the war and keep on doing all their 1%er kind of stuff. It's always the same. But anyway, Carl here, he made a copy of all that information and carefully followed the progress of Green Tech's case study that was funded by none other than the pre-war mobster Eddie Winter. Yeah. Carl didn't get to finish learning all there was to learn about the program, though, because, once again, there were a lot of complaints about Carl being all creepy and weird, and though nothing could be ever proven, he was actually suspected in the murder and, cannibalization of 3 Green Tech scientists, and so was once again fired. Sorry, I'm not laughing. I mean, I am laughing, but it's because I'm uncomfortable, It's just so disturbing and, yuck, I mean, who does that? Well, cannibals. But still, yuck. With all he had learned at Green Tech in his mind, Carl began to make plans for his own immortality, and so took a job as a driver for the energy company Mass Fusion. It was his job to drive barrels of radioactive waste to the company's dumping ground on the southeast bank of Lake, oh my god, again, Kakituate. What? Cochituate. Really? Okay. The southeast bank of Lake Cochituate outside of Boston. However, Carl began making a little pit stop on the way to the disposal site, taking a barrel or 2 from each of his deliveries and hiding them in the Fens Street sewer for his own experiments in this whole living forever thing. Down there in the sewer, he began exposing himself. He began exposing himself little by little to radiation, following the instructions he stole from Green Tech. By the way, a little bit of history goss here, Green Tech had called the project Operation Saint Germain, named after the 18th century Count of Transylvania, whom many believed became immortal through his experiments in alchemy. Look it up if you want to, it's all true. Operation Saint Germain claimed that careful and repeated exposure to radiation would mutate a human on a cellular level, eventually replacing a person's normal cells with immortal ones. That would leave a person basically unable to die from any kind of natural causes. And Carl was definitely down for that. Yes, he was. And he was digging this whole new underground hideout of his too. Not only was it his place to experiment with radiation, but he found that it would also make an incredible gallery to display all of his artwork. Because, despite all his different jobs, Carl never gave up his dream of being an artist, though he did learn to hide it. Being sent to an asylum for his creepy creations when he was a kid taught him to keep his art away from basically everyone. And once he discovered his favorite medium, he knew for sure that he had to keep it a secret. For you see, friends, over the years, Carl had developed a penchant for murder as well as art, and for him, his victims became his art supplies. Ew, right? Ugh, that is one sick puppy, that Carl. So now he had it all figured out, right? He had this plan to live forever. He had the sewers as his irradiated art gallery, and he had finally rebuilt his old family home into his own personal art studio where he would create all his atrocious artwork before proudly displaying it in his private gallery underground.
Oh my gosh!
And friends, I don't normally do on-the-spot stories, but this one, whoa. This one got me, and I just had to show you what I found out there. So, take a look at this. Well, here we are, deep in the swampy part of the wasteland, and this place looks as creepy as I thought it would. Yeah. Though, the lighting is an interesting touch. I didn't quite expect that, but he did consider himself an artist, so yeah, sort of makes sense. So, I'm just gonna start taking a little look around here, and I hope nobody's here, because that would be bad, but it seems deserted enough. So, looks like we got a studio over there, and a place where he supposedly kept, or keeps, I don't know, his supplies. And back here, we've got, oh my God, I just got a whiff of that back there. It says compost on the sign, so I'm just gonna, take that at face value and not go in there. Oh my God, the way it smells. I believe that it is indeed used for that exact purpose. So, I'm gonna skip that, but trust me, that is the compost box for sure. Okay. Then over here we've got a glass room full of skeletons. Okay. Cute. Yep. That's a lot of ex-humans in there. Let me see if I can find a way in. And yeah, here's a door. So let's go on in here, but I don't really want to step on anything or anyone. Excuse me. So stepping lightly. Seems like it might have been a raider trap of some kind. I'm assuming that whatever chems he had in there were some kind of fast-acting poison or something, right? Otherwise, couldn't they just, walk out the door we just came in? Well, whatever it was, it worked pretty good. I think I've seen enough of this. I'm ready to move on. Let's go. Okay, so here we are at the supply shed. Let's head on in and see what the Phantom had going on in there. Let me just open the door and, yeah, pretty much what I expected. Still, it's pretty gross, let me tell ya. Yeah, so we got some, meat bags over there, super mutant style, okay. Some random meat, I guess, hanging up there to dry. And, well, lots of things with blood all over them. Really on brand for the Phantom. All right. But, it all seems kind of fresh. And didn't this guy die like 200 years ago or something? Considering this guy here on the table looks really fresh. I don't know. I don't know. I thought this place would be completely abandoned, but it doesn't really look that way to me. Copycat killer, maybe? Either way, I'm thinking we shouldn't stick around here too long. This workbench looks all set up for dismemberment, and honestly, I'd rather not end up on that table myself if I can help it. So maybe coming here alone wasn't the brightest idea I've ever had, but for you, my viewers, I will carry on. Yeah. And in the spirit of getting out of here quickly, I think I'm ready to check out the studio now. Enough of this shed of horrors. Enough of this shed of terror, you know? Oh wait, that's interesting. Nice painting. February 16. Do you think that was the date it was painted, or it's the title? Oh well, I'd rather not stick around to ask, so let's get out of here. Oh hey, the rain stopped. Aw, that's nice. Ah, and look there. Yep, there are 3 X's. This dude was a psychopath, but he really had his branding game down, you know? Anyone that sees X's nowadays thinks about the Phantom, right? Iconic. Well, in his own horrific way, I suppose. Now then, friends, let's head on over here and take a look at the Phantom Studios. Just gonna climb the stairs here, bloop, 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 and head on in. Damn, a locked door. Who has a locked door? Well, someone that wants privacy probably, and I can sort of understand why this guy would want his privacy. So let's see, what do we have to do here? I assume these switches are the way to get in, but how the heck am I supposed to figure out the combination? Let me just try this. And no, nothing. Okay, I'll reset it and... Okay, so it's raining again, but after taking way too long to figure it out, I finally realized that over here, the CCXVI in his little sign, that's actually old-time Roman numerals for 216, like February 16th on the painting, right? 216. Ha! Who says learning history is a waste of time now, Mom? Anyway, let's give that a try. 2, 1, 6, and yes, I'm in. Haha, I'm in and oh, automatic door. Cool. Nothing to worry about there, I'm sure. So I'm just gonna open this other door and hey, well, this is actually kind of nice. Nicer than my place, that's for sure. I live in this rusted old van down by the river, but wow, what do we got here? A sweet little kitchen, okay. A dining area. Don't know if I want to know what's been eaten on that table, but okay. And ooh, what's back here? A bathroom with a real tub and everything. Oh, I love me a bathtub. So relaxing. And if I wasn't terrified of good old Carl coming through the door any minute, I might just take a little soak here, but there's more to see and we should probably skedaddle. Skedaddle? Oh God, why'd I say that? So stupid. What am I, a cowboy? Yeehaw! Anyway, over here, oh, how cozy. Cozy corner, right? Dude like to relax, that's for sure. Look at this. Comfy couch, then over here, there's a nice place to park yourself in front of the fireplace. These are some old-timey standards of living, you know? I mean, even Diamond City doesn't have anything this elegant.
It's big, loud, but it's home.
Nice bed, and a teddy bear. Aww. Well, I'd say sweet, but you know, serial killer. Well, that looks like that's it for down here. I'm gonna head on up the stairs now and see what's up there. You know, I'm a curious cat, and they say that curiosity killed the cat, but I'll be quick. Bleep, blop, bloop. It's just a quick peek, and then I'm out of here. No worries at all. Don't know why I feel worried, but yeah, it's all gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Ah, I see. Yep, bones. That's normal. I mean, for him, I suppose that's normal. A few bones lying around, and oh, wow. That's a bit more than a few bones. Huh. So the rumors are true. Oh my gosh, this is where he created his artwork and sculptures. Whoa, okay, well, after this initial shock, I have to say that, these are actually pretty interesting. I mean, looking at things from an artistic point of view, there's nice balance, nice composition. Each one says something different, doesn't it? Some are almost lighthearted in their structure, and others give a, darker feel. But overall, speaking strictly from an art historical perspective, mind you, I kind of think Carl is an artist. I mean, these are impressive. I'm not super crazy about the materials, but the expression of self, yeah, he's got it going on, for sure. Oh yeah, oh man, I almost forgot. I should probably get going. It's just so darn interesting in here, you know? But there's one last thing to see here. Kind of looks like his work table, yeah? Like where he puts everything together. Got tools, bones, paint, other things. Yeah, I'm thinking this is where he did his thing. Well, one of his things anyway. His art thing. And it looks like he had plenty of supplies. He really had this all thought out. And he's an Unstoppables fan too. So, he's not all bad. Okay, well, I feel I could just dig around here for hours, but I'm thinking that's probably not the wisest thing to do. So I'm gonna get myself out of here. But wow, it's really just so interesting, isn't it? I mean, knowing that this is where the famous Fens Phantom lived, and yeah, I know, maybe still lives, whatever. But to be able to get in here and see how he actually lived. I mean, this is not at all what I imagined for his home to be like. I thought it'd be all more like that supply shed thing with, you know, blood everywhere and stuff. But this is genuinely nice. Well, okay, upstairs is rather creepy, but oh my God, what's that? Oh, why did I come here by myself? Why did I come here by myself? Is that outside? Oh my gosh. Oh man. No, come on, Hailey. Pull it together. We just sneak out of here quietly. You know the drill. You've been in situations like this before. But you can do this. You can do this. Right, okay, I just gotta find a way to open the door. Right, like the switch right next to the exit sign. That should do it. Quietly, man. Okay, now I'm just gonna get the heck out of here and move on. Yeah. Sorry about the ending there. I got spooked and dropped the camera. It was all good. It turns out, just a mole rat making all that noise. Scared the bejesus out of me when it came up behind me and I dropped the camera. Sorry about that. So, what became of the Fens Phantom, you may ask? Well, let me tell you, things didn't end so great for Phantom Carl, and really, why should they? I mean, he wasn't by any means a nice guy, you know? So, karma, or whatever, right? But yeah, so October 23rd, 2077, the day that most of us that know anything about history remember as the day the bombs fell and humanity basically cascaded into chaos and despair. Yeah, on that day, Carl was down in his sewer lair working on something, and actually he'd been down there for like a really long time. See, one thing that wasn't mentioned in the info that he stole from Green Tech was that though the whole, living forever thing did actually seem to work, what they didn't mention was that your body would change. Like, a lot. Like, in a not really cute way either. Today, we'd say he was becoming a ghoul, but I don't think they had those words for it back then. All Carl knew was that he was becoming very, very unsightly. His hair fell out in patches. His skin got all saggy and wrinkled, and he began walking all weird too, so he just stopped going out where others could see him and question him about what was going on. As far as the outside world knew, Carl Riskington was assumed to be dead. But honestly, no one really noticed or cared. He wasn't terribly social to begin with, and so he just kind of faded away into his subterranean life, only coming out at night to travel to his studio or to gather art supplies in the streets of Boston. As you probably already guessed, Carl going missing wasn't, that big of a deal, but the people he was killing were definitely missed. And so the Boston Police Department sent their best detective to look into it, and you will never guess who it was. And no, it wasn't Nick Valentine. He was busy with the Eddie Winter case, but he did know the guy that was on the Phantom's case, and he confirms that it was none other than, are you ready for this? You are so not ready for this. It was Martin Riskington, Carl's brother. Oh my God! Can you imagine? See, way back when Carl was in the asylum, Martin had decided to become a cop. The two brothers had always been polar opposites when they were growing up. Carl was terrible in school, and Martin was a straight A student. Carl was bad at sports, and Martin was the quarterback of the football team. Carl could never bring himself to talk to anyone he had a crush on, but, Martin had no problems at all in the romance department. It's just life never seemed to go right for Carl, but it never seemed to go wrong for Martin. And Carl, he absolutely hated that. But at the same time, he loved his big brother, which led to some seriously messed up feelings in his little head, and really, no big surprise that he turned to crime. But once down in the sewer, Carl found out that it was his very own brother that was hunting the famed Phantom. He thought that there needed to be a final showdown between them. And so he began leaving really suspicious kind of clues at each murder scene for Martin to follow, leading him eventually to the sewer on Fens Street that fateful day. Oh man, fateful in so many ways. Martin arrived that morning at the sewer entrance around 9:30, telling his partner to wait outside in case the Phantom tried to make a run for it, that he would go in alone and would radio his partner when it was time to make the arrest. Martin headed in, not having a clue what was in store for him. As Martin made his way through the stinky underground tunnels, besides some of the Phantom's handiwork, he found a series of holotapes that Carl had made, disguising himself with the help of a General Atomics voice changer. Martin found the first tape shortly after entering the sewer.
Here we are, detective. If you followed my instructions, you're alone. And well, if you aren't, I've already left. You better be alone. Well, come on in. I've put my work on display down here, and I'd very much like you to see it.
He thought to himself that that voice sounded somewhat familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. After listening to it, though, Martin put the holotape back where he found it to preserve the crime scene, and he continued on his way. Fighting through some random resident ghouls, Martin soon came upon tape number 2.
I want you to appreciate your surroundings, detective. I can only be myself in a place like this. Life up there is exhausting. Every day you smile at people who don't care about you one way or another because that is what you do. Down here, I really get to live. I'm happy to share it with you today, detective.
There was a nagging feeling beginning to creep into Martin's mind. That voice sounded similar to who? Someone from his past, maybe? Someone he knew intimately but hadn't seen for a very long time? Eventually, he stumbled upon tape number 3.
I am getting so anxious about our meeting, detective. You know, I think I have only ever wanted someone to know me. And really, I can't think of anyone who knows me as well as you do. I am your object of fascination, and you have become mine. It's humbling, detective.
At this point, it began to dawn on him that that voice on those tapes could possibly, maybe, be his brother. They had drifted apart after their parents had been killed, but when Carl went missing a few years ago, no body was ever found. But that voice on the holotape, what was it? There seemed to be some kind of connection there, but no. His brother was dead, and even if he were alive, he may have been weird, but he could never do something like kill all those people. Could he? As Martin was nearing the end of the tunnel, there was a sudden rumbling of the earth that nearly knocked him off his feet. He radioed his partner immediately to see what happened, but his partner did not reply. He couldn't reply because that mini earthquake had actually been an atomic bomb going off right there in downtown Boston, and Martin's ever-loyal partner had all of his flesh basically incinerated off of his body in an instant. So now Martin was alone, more alone than he would ever know. As he rounded the last corner, he saw before him a ghastly creature looking like some monstrous human raisin walking around, and he gasped in horror at the sight. The raisin turned to look at him and then said,
"Ah, Martin, my dear brother, you finally made it."
Shocked, Martin fell back a couple of steps, faint with the realization that this deformed creature before him was not only his long-lost brother Carl, but also the most prolific serial killer Boston had ever seen.
"So, you didn't realize it was me until now. How delightful,"
said Carl, giving Martin an oozing grin. Martin struggled for words, wrestling with the various emotions running through his mind, eventually deciding that there had been enough loss in the family, and remembering his little brother as he once was, ran over to Carl and hugged him close.
Oh, Carl. Carl! It's been so long.
And he held his brother even tighter.
"Yes, 16 years actually,"
said Carl. Stepping back slightly, Martin replied,
That's right, it was at Mom and Dad's funeral. I never saw you again after that. Where did you go all of this time? I tried to find you after you got out of Parsons, but I could never find any trace of you."
Carl sneered.
Some great cop you are, brother. I was here in Boston the whole time. I didn't even change my name. If you wanted to find me, dear detective, I believe you could have.
Martin had to admit to himself that, yes, indeed, he had looked for his brother off and on over the years, but did he really put in the effort? Did he really want to find him? Or was his life just better off without all the drama of his younger brother's constant problems? As the shock of finding his brother after all these years began to fade, Martin started to remember why he was there in the first place. Conflicted, he said,
"Carl, but you? You're the Phantom? You killed all of those people? And you used them to make all of that out there?"
It's art, Martin. You can say it. It's art.
Carl said, grinning again.
How could you? How could you kill so many innocent people?"
Oh, it was easy after a while. The first time was the hardest. I had no idea what I was doing, mostly going on instinct, really. But after they abandoned me there in Parsons when I was just a little boy, well now, that was enough inspiration for me to get the job done.
Martin began pacing, still struggling with the reality of what was going on. Carl had killed their parents? But no, that was impossible.
"You were locked away when that happened. It couldn't have been you. No, it couldn't have been you."
Carl laughed a very gooey laugh and said,
Oh, Martin. Oh, Martin. How did you ever make it to lead detective? You're much too naive to have made it to that rank. Of course it was me. Parsons is a hospital, not a prison. It's so easy to sneak out with the laundry if one has the mind to do so.
Maybe it was Carl's laughter more than his admission that broke Martin's mind. Shaking his head, trying to deny the truth that was right in front of him, he yelled,
"No! Oh my God, Carl! You are just as messed up as everyone said you were. You killed our parents and all those other people. You're a monster! Look at you! You're a monster!"
Insane with rage, he lunged for Carl, arms outstretched, grabbed him by the throat, and began strangling him. Now Carl was caught a little bit off guard and realized that though he was immune to any kind of natural death, he could feel the life draining out of him as his brother furiously tightened his grip. Desperate, Carl flailed around and, grabbing a nearby hammer, struck with all of his force. Martin screamed and began staggering around, quickly collapsing on a nearby table, hammer still stuck in his head. It was over so quickly, Carl hardly knew what happened. Killing had always been so enjoyable and had taken so much longer with his chosen victims, but this time it was just over. And he hadn't chosen Martin, it just happened. As Carl looked upon Martin's lifeless body, he began to feel something strange. Was this guilt? Why did he feel guilt? Why did he feel bad about killing his brother? He never felt bad about any of his former murders. But Martin had always stood up for him in school. Martin had always forgiven him no matter what weird thing he did as a kid. Martin never laughed at him and always loved whatever little drawing or sculpture he made. Martin was his big brother, and now he was dead. dead by Carl's hand. We'll never know if it was the guilt or the radiated rotting of his brain, but Carl finally lost his tenuous grasp of reality in this moment. He grabbed his General Atomics voice changer once again and made one final holotape for his brother. Maybe in some kind of attempt to convince himself that his brother wasn't really dead.
I didn't want to hurt you, Detective. I didn't want to hurt you. But you hurt me first. Now I know you didn't mean those things you said. And I forgive you, Detective. It doesn't matter anymore. Now you're here with me. And we have all the time in the world to get to know each other.
The decline of Carl Riskington was swift after this. In his diary, which was found down there in the sewer, Carl's writing becomes more and more illegible and more nonsense. His entry from that day, however, he writes about how many survivors from the streets above had come down into the sewer in an attempt to escape the radiation from the bombs. But as the sewer itself was radiated from all the barrels he had stored down there, these surface refugees just slowly mutated into ghouls, much like himself over time. At first, he found their company annoying, but then realized that they actually served a purpose by keeping raiders and looters out of his sewer home. Over the following months, Carl continued his art for as long as he could, choosing his victims first from nightly excursions to the surface. Later, as his body deteriorated even more and began glowing, he realized he was having a lot of trouble climbing the ladder, and so chose from the unlucky souls that had trapped themselves down there with him. But it seems his heart just wasn't in it anymore. His final diary entry had no date, just the words, "No think more, can't, move hurt, no end, wish end, but never no end, why to be alway why, always, much sorry Martin, alway, goodbye." After that, the trail goes cold and we don't really know what happened to good old Carl. Some say he still wanders around down there even to this day. Others say he was killed by a lone wanderer that had been looking for their kid when they stumbled on the glowing remains of what was once Carl Riskington. Either way, the story of the Fens Phantom continues to live on, told around campfires throughout the wasteland. So, what do we learn from this one? Well, first, if a kid wants to draw, let him. Ugh. Seriously, don't squash a kid's creative dreams ever. Like, that never goes well. Am I right? Yeah, it can go real bad sometimes. Oh yeah, and also misused radiation is bad, and war is bad, and killing people is bad. Lots of things are bad these days, actually, so let's just focus on the good, shall we? Okay? Like, maybe just be nice to each other, and maybe not be so judgy all the time and quick to rage over stupid things. Live and let live, you know? I mean, I think the answers are really simple, but that's just me, and what do I know, right? I'm just a girl on a holotape who made a lot of soap today. Whoa, will you look at that? Looks like I got a little carried away, but this was a long story and apparently a lot of time to make soap. Right, Bone? Yeah, right on, girl. She loves soap. Don't know why. I mean, do birds even use soap? What does she do? Eat it? What does she do with it? I don't know. Anyway, that's the story of the Fens Phantom and his secret studio. Leave a comment down below because I would love to hear what you think about this case, or anything, really. I just like hearing from you guys. You know that. I mean, I like you. You're kind of weird. I like that in a person. So, yeah, I guess that's it for today. That's a wrap, as they say. That's a wrap! Ugh, Mr. Pembroke is looking all weird at me. What? What are you looking at, Mr. Pembroke? Can't a girl be exuberant sometimes? Ugh, whatever. He takes on such an attitude. Probably because he feels empty inside. Ha! Get it? Empty inside? Because he's a skeleton? Yeah, okay. Okay, so take good care of yourselves, make reasonably sane choices, and I'll be seeing you next time that I can get past all the gunners and am able to record another spooky story for you. Goodbye!